MeMonster.
Chapter 6. Mission completed, returning to your original world. 400 days of lifespan will be rewarded. Remaining lifespan, 681 days, 9 hours, 34 minutes. With a plop, I was lying on the cold floor of the studio, breathing heavily. I am terribly tired. Although none of my equipment was completely destroyed like before, expensive ammunition, 2 magnetized bombs, and an E4 were used. You'll have to run around a lot to make up for all this money. What could only be described as bitter. The more I think about getting only 100 million won in severance pay, the more pissed I got. Forcing my stiff body to sit up, I spoke. Status window. The increased abilities made me dazed. Besides, I even got a S-rank skill. Perhaps because it was a sword and had no ability or talent, all I could absorb were skills. But I saw a very trashy skill called Sword Transformation A, which would literally turn me into a sword. It was also impossible to revert back to human form. If I had the additional skill called Forced Possession SS, then I wouldn't mind living as a sword. I wonder what I would do if I had absorbed it, but fortunately I succeeded in absorbing the highest S-rank skill the Holy Sword had. It was also a skill I needed the most right now. Swordsmanship. No matter how good a rank talent is, it is more comfortable to go on a reliable path than to carve out a path myself. And swordsmanship rank A+ is like providing a clearly paved road for a sports car. White swordsmanship rank S, a sword skill that can be said to be every sword skill in the world. It has no form but also many forms. It has no style but also many styles. It is a blank canvas and you're the painter. That is white swordsmanship. What are you talking about? So I read it over and over again 30 times, and then I realized. Oh, I can use my dick as a sword. There's no clearly defined form for white swordsmanship. It was a skill that would improve my form from time to time to fit the swing of my sword. This is the skill that enabled whoever held the holy sword Barrett to become the best swordsman. I did not receive any vision that was passed down for hundreds of years. Nor was it a skill that destroyed enemies in one swing. Just a sword skill that changed into the most suitable form for me. That is white swordsmanship. When I closed my eyes and focused, a picture was drawn in my head. The way I wielded my sword. In my imagination, I was wielding an ether blade that was 1 20 cm tall, 5 cm wide, and weighs 4 kg. Much shorter and lighter than what I am using now. I swung it as if I was flying, and the body actually floated in the air. Happy. I got off the floor, picked up the ether blade, and took a big breath. Suddenly my lungs sucked in mana. This is a mana breathing method. So far I have been forced to scrape together mana. However, as soon as I learned white swordsmanship, I quickly understood how mana flows through my body. My hands were shaking. Having acquired the talent swordsmanship rank A+, I thought I could handle all the swords in the world. But it was delusional. Genius talent was just a wild instinct. Just as a tiger instinctively knows how to effectively bite off its enemy and tear it apart. But now there is a clear path. I wanted to test this sword right away. Looking at the clock, it was 1 p.m. The only place I could test this was at Jumgang Gym. Suddenly, I thought of the golden sandbag training at the gym, so I immediately left. I just had a big battle and my whole body was stiff, but I wasn't in the mood to rest. Whenever I went out, I always took an ether dispenser, but unfortunately most of my equipment was broken, so I couldn't. Rich hunters wore suits that can be activated at a press of a button, but I didn't have the money, so I used an old-fashioned ether coat. Suits were easy to remove, easy to clean, had great defense, and could regulate the body's temperature. On the other hand, coats were cumbersome, inconvenient to store, had simple defense, and there were huge disadvantages of using it in the summer due to the heat. I'd like to buy a suit someday. I had no choice but to leave my coat at home. All I took with me was an ether pistol that was easy to carry and an ether blade that could be held in a carrier. Then I went to the subway in sweatpants. I bought a motorcycle for transportation, but didn't use it unless it was really urgent. By the time I got to Konkuk University Station, the surrounding area became noisy. The vibration from my cell phone was making a lot of noises. A D-rank gate has opened within a 30-meter radius of Konkuk University Station. Citizens, please evacuate. Times have changed, and now people were no longer afraid of monsters. With more accurate forecasts than even weather forecasts, people were good at evacuating in advance, and even when low-level anomalies occurred, spectators would flock to check out the scene. In fact, no one took the evacuation notice seriously. Korea was one of the 12 countries with the lowest hunting failure rate in the world. Damn it, I'm going to be late for my appointment. So unlucky. There were people complaining. Ooh, can we see the hunters? Let's take a picture. Some people were excited. I could see the subway platform was shut down as I approached. It seems that there is a gate in the subway area. I wouldn't mind coming forward if that was the case, but I didn't because it seemed like there were already others to take care of it. Even if I didn't, the gates and dungeons were scattered. Hunters would take care of the monsters in a flash anyway. When the police and public officials stepped in to slowly put the citizens behind a line, I decided to follow and wait patiently. But it was strange. According to protocols, if a gate occurs underground, it would have to be transferred above ground using a gate transfer device, but there was no sign of that. Already there's not much time left. Eventually, I sneaked up to a man who seemed to be in charge and spoke. "You're not transferring the gate above ground." "Ha ha ha, you must have heard that somewhere, but that's not necessary for D-rank gates." "Why?" "The reason to transfer underground gates to above ground is if there were medium-sized species, but there's no such monster in a D-rank gate." "What are you saying, why not?" As I began to argue with him, he slowly became annoyed and sighed. "You're just an ordinary citizen, what do you know?" I took my ID out of my wallet. F-rank Hunter 15. The person in charge had a sullen look after seeing my rank, but his eyes opened wide when he saw the number next to it. The number 15 means a veteran hunter with 15 years of experience. This is not the first time I've seen something like this happen. Just tell your boss what I just said. Don't take the blame for someone else's mistake. Ah, yes, for the time being. Then someone suddenly shouted. I thought I heard a familiar voice. Aren't you UC Autumn? Turning my head, a man wearing the armband of the Lost Day Guild was approaching. I recognize his face. Kim Jitty. From my memory, he had the ability of D rank. I heard you retired, but you're still here. Do you want to use an expensive gate transfer device because you're a little scared? What are you talking about? The citizen's safety is a hunter's top priority, if it's a medium. Senior. Kim Jitty shrugged, smiled, and pointed behind him. 5 D-rank hunters, and the team leader is a C-rank superhuman hunter. You may be scared, but this is enough. It's overkill. Looking back, 5 hunters stood with the Lost Day armband. There were people like that. It was such a huge guild that I can't remember all the faces. Also, one of them felt kind of strange. It was hazy, and weirdly I felt my appetite growing. Have I been drinking? I said what I wanted to say and felt it was pointless to continue. Fine, suit yourself. Yes, we can take care of ourselves. In fact, Kim Jitty was right. As a F-rank hunter, I had to be prepared for every situation, but it was different for superhumans. They were allowed to make minor mistakes, because they were capable of overcoming them. But my point wasn't whether they could deal with it or not. Among the D-rank monsters, there were many medium-sized monsters, and if those came out, the subway would be in a terrible mess. So I thought it would be safer to transfer it above ground. But the chances are so low that everyone else ignored it. Whying? As the gate began to open, hunters, including Kim Jitty, quickly disappeared into the subway. Soon I heard the sound of gunshots. Seeing that there was no problem on the ground, I knew it wasn't a medium-sized monster and was worried for nothing. But something is off. If the hunt is successful, only the sound of an explosion should be heard, but a wild beast's cry came from inside the subway. What the hell is happening down there? Then, someone shouted over the speaker. Damn it, an unknown monster has appeared. Citizens, please evacuate immediately. What? Boom. The rail between the intersections started to crack, then it slowly collapsed. I still heard screams in the subway, but this time it was humans. What is happening all of a sudden? To be honest, I was flustered too. Sometimes strong monsters would appear in weak dungeons. There are always such variables. But I've never seen this phenomenon before. A C-rank hunter, 5 D-rank hunters, and more than 10 soldiers, yet they're still struggling. When that thought came to mind, something smashed the ground and ran up. Red skin all over, gross muscle mass that seems deformed, and a massive size that is likely over 5 meters tall. It was unmistakably a monster, but it looked very human. Crazy, what the hell is that? Hunter, what the hell is that? The field leader panicked and asked me, but honestly I don't know either. I've hunted on the front line for decades, but I've never seen such a human-like monster. No. Wait a second. I've seen a similar case like this a long time ago. But it was so different from what I remembered that I wasn't sure. Damn it, call for backup right now. After shouting for backup, I took out my Etha blade and jumped into the scene. My equipment was lacking. Only one portable Etha pistol and one Etha blade. There is no proper protection, so an ordinary hunter like me who doesn't have a strengthened body will die if hit once by that thing. That monster is probably at least B rank. If I had enough equipment, I could break through its defense with a pistol and a blade. Every monster has a layer of protection made of Etha or chi-like properties. And it was also the only thing that could penetrate the flesh of the monsters. However, ordinary hunters needed to break that protective layer first. So Etha guns were invented. The average rifle can break a monster's protective layer and cause huge damage at the same time, but with a small pistol it'll just strip the protective layer. Also, the area that had been stripped of the protection must be precisely cut off with a sword. That's how ordinary hunters without superpowers dealt with monsters. Should I try it? In fact, it was extremely difficult. So I've never tried it in my life. But now, I can do it. Looking at the sword in my hand, I was full of confidence. Oh, damn it. Kim Jitty crawled out of the subway. His strength ability was good in many ways, but his disadvantage was that he could hardly use his strength against an enemy who had a stronger power than him. I hurried up to Kim Jitty and slapped him on the cheek. Because I needed answers now. Hey, wake up. Senior, damn it, let's retreat, that's not something we can deal with. What the hell are you talking about? We're the only hunters on the scene, what would happen if we left? They're going to die anyway, it would be better to retreat and wait for support. No, you've seen all these idiots. Kim Jitty. Did he say it was his second year as a professional hunter? The hunters from the city are rather hopeless. Their ability to cope with emergency situations was lacking as they only hunted when they were in their best condition with the best equipment and was certain of victory. Moreover, Kim Jitty seems to be very skilled when it comes to close combat, especially for his ability. Hey, shut up and tell me, what is that monster? Was it mana poisoning? Kim Jitty shook his head to my question. There seems to be a situation where he couldn't answer, but that's none of my business. In the end, it's another human hunt. I don't know why a person suddenly appeared here with mana poisoning. This is because they have to absorb an excess amount of mana where it overloaded their body for it to happen. But it doesn't matter. First of all, there's a hunt in front of me, so I will hunt. That's what a hunter does. Kim Jitty seemed useless, so I loaded my pistol with the intention of dealing with it alone, but he grabbed my ankle. Well, what are you going to do with such equipment? Bastard, let go of me. After swinging my foot roughly and stomping him in the face, I spoke. Do I look like a beginner like you? Yes. C rank. It was strong enough to be a threat. Kim Jitty, who is still inexperienced, came out to hunt with a C-rank superhuman and acted if he was invincible. But monsters above B rank, which are higher than him, would be beyond his reach. But not to me. It is what I am used to dealing with when I hunt. Chapter 7. Most monsters have an ether coating, but not all were like that. It's the same with superhumans who have awakened a strong physique. The most common and simplest way to utilize ether, strengthen body. They also have a thin ether coating on their skin, which absorbs ether into their body and converts it into energy they can use. In the first place, human superpowers resembled that of a monster to the point where many say that superpowers are powers of monsters. That's to say, that thing in front of me is human, but I have to think of it as a monster. Mana poisoning. It's a phenomenon that sometimes occurs to people with superpowers. Superhumans who can't control their abilities. There are at least 2 to 3 conditions before a person's mana is overloaded. Once they go into the state of mana poisoning, they will lose their rational, and it's impossible to subdue them completely because of their enormous power. In fact, it has to be shot dead. Click. I looked down at the 5 grenades in my hands taken from Kim Jitty. Most superhumans believe in their own ability, so they don't often pack a lot of equipment. I threw one grenade after the other, then casually fired my pistol. Bang! Go! The grenades, which exploded just below its ankle, tore the ether protection from its lower body. Not missing the chance, I quickly rushed in with my ether blade. Boom! Happy. However, the monster, who has recovered from the impact, tore up the air by slamming its fist. It felt like a cannon was being fired right at me with its deafening sound. However, I saw it coming and was able to cut into its heel with my ether blade before sliding to the side. Grr. I must not miss a single chance. No, me, the weak ordinary F-rank hunter, was not allowed to make a mistake. As soon as I entered its range, I quickly rolled to the side, and as I rolled, the bulky leg of the monster stomped down. Crack! The floor split into cobwebs and created a crater of more than 5 meters. I took advantage of the shockwave to shoot its face with my pistol before falling far away. Then it instinctively raised its arms to cover its face, even though it had already been shot. That's the difference between a monster and a human. It failed to abandon its human instincts. Now, bang bang bang. After shooting the monster 3 times in a row with my pistol, the monster swung its arm and smashed the floor as if it would not allow it. Boom. But its movement was too clear to me. Have I ever experienced this before? I always had to anticipate and avoid the enemy attacks, and all I could do was be careful and passive. Compared to other hunters who were my junior, in the past I had to move my whole body here and there just to catch the monster off guard with a few hits using my poor equipment. But now I can see it clearly. This was how other hunters felt. Self-confidence in my own ability and not the lack of. Boom boom boom. The punches of the huge monster were raining down on me to the point where I couldn't even see the monster above me. No, to be exact, most of the attacks were deflected. It would have been impossible before to attempt the crazy act of deflecting the punches by absorbing its momentum. However, I was able to do it. The fists were deflected to the side with my ether blade. Or its fist would just graze the edge of my body and miss me by an inch. It was impossible to stop it all completely, so I would shoot its fists with my pistol to twist its trajectory. Although the ether pistol is a wet tissue when it comes to removing a monster's protective coating, it is clear that it also contained a tremendous amount of destructive power. I was using it defensively. At the right timing, if I shoot the right part, the impact will surely shake its movements. And it soon became an opportunity for me. God. When I cut its throat, the monster stepped back in surprise. But even as it stepped back, I was already running towards it, and by the time it stabilized, a bomb was already rolling on the floor. Boom! When it lost its balance, shining at the tip of my hand was a blade coated in ether. What kind of movements were humans capable of? What swordsmanship did we use? Didn't we just use hard, fast, powerful force to swirl our sword in ignorance? Although swordsmanship really is full of inefficient and useless movements. However, all the swordsmanship I had seen in this world was unraveled in my mind. The swordsmanship of the protagonist, which has been studied and developed for over 1,000 years, is not the swordsmanship of modern people like me, who is only 30 years old. Skill white swordsmanship rank S activated. First form apathetic introspection. Like a blossoming flower. And the raging blizzard. A mysterious swordsmanship that seems to have unfolded at my fingertips. I know the limits of my body. The talent Swordsmanship A+ made me very efficient with the sword, and the white swordsmanship made it possible for me to grow even faster. While moving as if I was dancing, I went forward as rough as a waterfall and dived as hard as a typhoon. Jiarower. As the monster rampaged again, I threw a grenade. To be honest, it was hard for me to close the distance. Go. Boom. The monster knew the bomb in my hand was dangerous because it had some intelligence, so it tried to flimsily avoid it. But this is the method I was good at before I gained the talent of swordsmanship. The grenade, which bounced into the air like a basketball, flew toward the rampaging monster as if it had a mind of its own and exploded on its head. Knowing that I can't miss this chance, I quickly stepped back one more time despite my current position. Then there was only one more choice for me. I took out the last grenade and pulled the pin. I have to throw it. Click. The grenade, which slipped from my hand, slowly fell to the ground. No matter how irrational they are, all monsters and beasts have the ability to adapt. It noticed my mistake and quickly rushed at me. It thought it could withstand the explosion and crush me at the same time. But it was intentional. I recovered from my awkwardness in a flash and looked at the bomb on the ground as if I was looking at a golf ball. The monster was completely defenseless, so I used the side of my ether blade to swing the grenade into its mouth. Next, I shot my pistol under its chin like an uppercut. Cut. With its mouth shut, I gathered mana into my arms and stabbed my ether blade into its chin. Then, boom. Inside the body of the monster, an explosion sounded, then it slowly fell to the ground. Boom. Hoo. Wiping the sweat off my face, I burst into a laughter as I looked at the fallen monster. Boom. Kim Jitty's lips trembled as he watched a monster capable of crushing him fall to the ground. Oh my god. In his view was the back of UC Autumn standing tall. He couldn't believe it. Basically, a person with no equipment can easily deal with a monster of the same rank. Though it was almost impossible to predict victory. With ether suits and full equipment, at least 3 people had to rush in to subdue monsters of the same rank. In other words, Kim Jitty thought, no matter how expensive the equipment is, I can't defeat the monster of C rank alone. This was common sense to most hunters. However, very occasionally, there were beings beyond common sense. Located at the heart of the Pacific Ocean, there was a mysterious gate called Hell Gate that leads to another world. Some hunters would hunt inside, and even less would come back alive. Veterans who used to travel around that place where common sense and concepts did not work at all, not only hunted monsters with the same rank as them but were also able to hunt even higher monsters by themselves. But still, isn't this too much? The formidable monster with the sheer strength of at least a rank, defeated by a F-rank hunter who only had a cheap pistol and an ether blade. Kim Jitty himself had been defeated in a battle of strength against it in a matter of seconds. A single blow will kill you. However, UC Autumn attacked it without even wearing simple protective gear and eventually defeated it by fighting. Emergency support units have arrived. Buzz Group 7, report to me, how's the situation? That. Suddenly, Kim Jitty turned his head to check the voice coming from behind. 3 A-rank hunters dressed in a grayish-brown suit were sweating. A-rank soldiers from the Capitol Defense Headquarters specializing in hunting monsters. Group 7 of the Emergency Assistance Force for Disaster in Seoul. They, who had just arrived in helicopters, were puzzled to see that the situation was already over. What the hell happened here? When asked by Yang Sunyoung, the rank hunter and leader of Group 7 of the support unit, Yu Seodam, who arrived earlier, answered on behalf of Kim Jitty. I am a hunter who was just passing by when all of a sudden bullshit happens, so I had to take care of it. She breathed a sigh of relief when she heard Yu Seodam's report. A monster between B rank and A rank was wreaking havoc in the middle of Konkuk University Station, and the response team was only 5 D rank and 1 C rank. Not only annihilation, but also the damage around was thought to be enormous, so they rushed to the scene, but fortunately it seemed to have been handled by a veteran hunter who was passing by. Oh, I am so glad there was a professional hunter here. I am going to have to report your achievements to the higher-ups. Can you show me your ID? Of course. Siadam also intended to show her his ID because he wasn't going to work for free. Then the three A-rank hunters breathed heavily. F-rank, is that right? Yes. Did you handle that monster alone? It can't be. He was the only one still standing, but there has to be other hunters. No wonder Yang Sunyang thought as such. Wasn't he only wearing a black hoodie and sweatpants with a pistol and an ether blade? No matter how strong A-rank superhumans are, they can't deal with A-rank monsters with such equipment alone. But yes, this worthless fellow was stuck here and I dealt with it alone. If you're going to pay, then give me everything. How? He admitted the fact. She looked at Siadam's ID again. F-rank #15. Jesus. It was the usual F-rank. Veteran hunters who have survived for as many as 15 years through hard work in a harsh battlefield is rare. Even superhumans with superpowers were often seriously injured or mutilated in battle, or otherwise retired in mental exhaustion. But a F-rank hunter is in his 15th year. No matter how ordinary you are, can you do this if you fought on the battlefield for 15 years? No way. She recorded the information of Siadam while deep in thought. It was because they needed to contact each other again when they later celebrated his merits. Hunter Kim Jitty, then can we distribute the ether crystal to Hunter Siadam at a 100% rate? Oh, that's... When Kim Jitty became flustered, Siadam spoke. That there's no ether crystal. What? It is no exaggeration to say that ether crystals, which were extracted from the monster's heart, accounted for 50% of a hunter's revenue. Since all monsters had an ether crystal, it was natural that Sanyang did not immediately understand Siadam's words. It's not a monster, but a mutated human. Well, that's ridiculous. A society in which superpowers have become universal. Now even young children are talented, and if they want, they can get an education at the Academy of Superpowers. As the level of education on superpowers has increased, the proportion of those who experience mana poisoning has naturally fallen, so nowadays there are some hunters who have never even heard of the words mana poisoning. If you don't believe me, hey, Kim Jitty. Yes. Go down the subway and bring all 5 of your assholes. That... When Kim Jitty began to sweat without being able to speak, Sanyang also felt something was strange. All 5 of them, there has to be at least one. If one of the hunter's blood is analyzed and mana poison was detected, then what Siadam said is true. But why would he want to hide this fact? Obviously, it is embarrassing for a person to be mana poisoned to come from the guild, but Siadam and Sanyang could not understand why Kim Jitty was this embarrassed. As I kept trying to question him, white-clad researchers and men in suits came up and blocked me from the front. The bodies will be examined by us and then returned to their families, so don't worry and take a rest. What? Okay. Siadam nodded his head and checked the pattern on their shoulders. Then he frowned. Kinetic Pharmaceutical Company. It's a familiar name. From what I remembered, it was a company that was clearly gone, but I didn't expect to see them here all of a sudden. I watched them hurrying to clean up the body of the hunters, then I asked Kim Jitty. Hey, are they in charge of the cleanup for Lost Day? When I asked Kim Jitty, he was sweating and nodded. Yes, in addition to the health of the hunters, they take care of the bodies of the monsters after a hunt. In the meantime, Kim Jitty asked if he's going to be disciplined by the military or not. Strange, as soon as I left the guild, they joined hands with them. Siadam has a bad impression of the Kinetic Pharmaceutical Company. As soon as I was kicked out of the guild, the fact that Lost Day absorbed Kinetic Pharmaceutical Company as if it had been waiting for me to be kicked out of the guild gave me a nasty smell. But there was nothing I could find out right now, so I kept it in the back of my mind. I don't think there's anything I could do about it as a F-rank right now anyways. Looking at Yang Sunyang, who was looking at me with sparkling eyes, I asked. By the way, can I leave now? Yes, of course, now that we have your information, we'll proceed with the pay settlement process. Okay, have a good day. Thank you for your hard work. Jill. When Siadam nodded, Yang Sunyang saluted in admiration. Kim Jae-tae gulped. It was because he finally realized that a F-rank hunter who used to be ignored was worthy of such a salute from an A-rank hunter. Seodam, who had a happy look on his face, soon approached the hesitant Kim Jae-tae and slapped him hard on the back. Bye. Aye. From now on, don't drag it out and make it harder, okay? Yes, yes. Then I am going. With Kim Jae-tae, whose behavior has changed suddenly on the spot, Yoo Seodam left. Back to the subway where the accident just happened. Shit, the subway is all smashed up. Only. Looking at the scene, he eventually went back up and grabbed a taxi. Kim Jae-tae was puzzled and asked, "Is it common for F ranks to hunt B rank monsters alone?" Yang Sunyoung shook her head at him. Though that's not entirely correct. If you're equipped with expensive equipment, it's a different story. But he was naked without a piece of equipment. It would be tough not only in our country, but also abroad. And the next day, as Yang Sunyoung predicted, a video had blown up on SNS. Chapter 8. All aspiring hunters must go through a debut process to become a professional hunter. It was also a venue for opportunities in many ways, because although you could still resolve anomalies as a F rank by having professional hunters help you and obtain a professional license, it was an opportunity to gain ranks rapidly or join a good guild if you did well in your debut. The debuts were usually done in pairs or as many as 4 people at a time, and most of them went by quietly, but some aspiring hunters were different. There were people who drew attention even before they became professional hunters. Celeste, for example, was one of the most notable prospects. At the age of 17, with D-rank strength as well as being the eldest daughter of the SS-rank hunter Salvatore Costantini, and even the fact that she was a great beauty played a part. With those blue eyes that always seemed to stare blankly at the world, and the gorgeous golden hair that was braided back, everyone of all ages and genders who saw her once were mesmerized. In case of delivering a good prospect, the helpers were also well received, so professional hunters who wanted to attach themselves to Celeste's debut were constantly coming to Jumgang Gym. It was also because Celeste Costantini officially announced in an interview with the Hunter Association, "I want return home. I'll make my debut in Korea." Some came from Italy and some were active duty A-rank hunters from famous guilds who came to see her, so director Kim had to deal with them. In the end, Celeste rejected all their requests. With a gentle impression, Celeste said, "I won't go with a hunter who I have nothing to learn from." It was an indifferent remark. Hunters who want to show that they are not timid must go through the process of debut to become professional hunters. Well, her father is a SS rank hunter, so she deserves it. Then she should go with her dad. What's she doing in Korea? Apparently her father told her to find a senior hunter on her own. I heard it was meant to widen her view. There were many aspiring hunters at Jumgang Gymnasium, and thanks to Celeste, it became a good opportunity to network with professional hunters. Furthermore, some aspiring hunters even caught the eyes of professional hunters who gave up on Celeste and were heading back. How Celeste, even the media. Director Kim pointed to the TV and said to Celeste, who was sitting idly in the corner of the office with her smartphone, "Celeste likes Korea's hunting culture more than Italy's." The eldest daughter of the Costantini family remarks to hunter Lee Jong-soo, "There's nothing to learn. Why did she fall in love with Korea?" And so on. Most were useless news. As the eldest daughter of one of the 37 SS rank hunters in the world, the media seems to be very excited about her debut. At director Kim's words, she looked at the TV, but then turned her head back to her smartphone. "Is that all? You don't seem to be interested in what's going on in the media. Ever since I was a kid, the media have always been talking about me like that. It's the same this time." Yeah. She's a child of a star. She's probably used to this. Suddenly, director Kim felt very awkward seeing the daughter of such a huge figure sitting in the office of his humble gym. It's all thanks to you, Seodam. In the first place, director Kim taught Salvatore body control with the help of Yoo Seodam. In the past, Yoo Seodam made numerous hunting trips around the world and made acquaintance with numerous hunters, Salvatore being one of them. At that time, when Autumn met Salvator, who was suffering from a stagnant in his progress, he introduced him to the director, a hunter from Korea who was famous for his strong body control. However, Celeste was not interested in Jumgang Gym, so she thought she would just take some time off and relax, but now even after 3 months she still didn't think of going back. No, she even said that she would make her debut in Korea. And that little kid, she has been watching the video of Autumn. A few days ago, a video was uploaded to UTV, a global video hosting site. It was a video of a F-rank hunter killing a rampaging B-rank monster decisively. However, it was nothing special if you consider the countless hunters who uploaded videos daily. 30 years after the Great War against monsters, hunting was a kind of heroic job that only superhumans with strong powers could do. Ordinary hunters were considered as just normal humans. But now, an ordinary person suddenly appeared and defeated a B-rank monster without superpowers. The video caused a huge sensation and has garnered more than 30 million views in just a few days. In addition, what shocked viewers was how hunters could be seen wearing shiny suits while the main character in the video was dressed casually in a hoodie and sweatpants. Aren't you dressed so comfortably as if you were out for a walk? C-130, he's an ordinary person who hunts as a hobby. Like 11,237, dislike 973. 4-pawn superhuman who lost control. Like 6,712, dislike 736. Milo, wow, at 532 did the rebound from the pistol block the punch, like 7,691, dislike 379. Normal people who are not hunters knew how weak the pistols used by hunters are against monsters with super strength. It was just for show and it was rarely used in real life, but it was utilized like a shield by an ordinary hunter and not a superhuman. The battle was almost like art. To be honest, it was a perfect and elaborate battle style that made even her think it was beautiful. Some comments even suggested that the hunt was all planned. How could an ordinary hunter even lure a strong monster in advance to hunt? Of course, such comments were buried. Even now, the number of views continued to rise, partially thanks to Celeste, who was constantly watching it. Has she ever seen a sword like this in her life? Although Celeste invited countless swordsmen from the Costantini family and learned the great impact sword, Autumn's swordsmanship was more unusual and beautiful than any other swordsmanship she had seen. Now she could even recall what happened in the video at every minute and second. Thud. Celeste stood up after putting down her smartphone. Now that she has seen enough of the video, it was time to put it into action. To imitate the sword of Autumn. She sparred with him a lot over the past few weeks, but so far, Autumn has never used such a sword technique against her. In other words, she thought that Autumn has been treating her lightly. However, it was a new skill that Autumn has yet to master, but Celeste, who didn't know that, misunderstood him. She asked to spar with him so she could learn the skill, but she can't believe that she's not even good enough for him to show it to her. Has she ever experienced this in her life? The answer is no. This was the first wall in front of Celeste. So she had a hunch that if she can break through this wall, her achievements will be even greater. Celeste swung her wooden sword, recalling the sword of Autumn in the video. She imagined Autumn's sword as if it was a painting, like a flower or the falling waterfall or the pouring rain. Number 139. It was the number tag that Autumn received. Ding Hunter number 129, please come to window 4. In Seoul, there is a 130-story skyscraper built using ETHA and is Korea's Hunter Association branch. Hunters visit this place for various reasons, but the reason why Autumn came here today was for guild registration. Hunters can't be active by themselves. He had to belong to a guild, but none of the guilds wanted to take him in, who is basically a relic. That's why Autumn desperately tried to stay in Lost Day. However, he could not give up the reward money, so he took advantage of Korea's sloppy hunter laws. It's that there's no hunting requirements even if you just roughly register as a one-person guild. It's similar to a kind of personal business registration. He had no intention of creating a one-man guild for solo hunting because it was almost impossible as a F-rank hunter. However, he was recently contacted by the Capital Defense Headquarters and rushed here because they had a problem paying the reward due to him not belonging to any guild. If a B rank is defeated, he'll get about 5 million won in free money. How could I miss that? So you want me to be your senior hunter? Ding Hunter number 131, please come to window 9. Autumn looked into Celeste's eyes, who was next to him staring at him. Her indifferent eyes are clearer today than ever before, and I was unable to tell what's on her mind. You said you were debuting soon. Autumn was the most active time for new hunters to debut. The graduation at Hunter Academy was also around this time of year, so they made their debut all at once. Even so, if you're an aspiring hunter like Celeste, many people would have asked her here and there, but Autumn couldn't understand why she chose him. I was lost in my thoughts when Celeste hesitated and asked, "By the way, what are you waiting for?" "What am I waiting for? I am number 139. I have to wait my turn." She didn't seem to understand, even though I told her. Hasn't she ever been to a bank? When Autumn thought so, Celeste gave a rather wild answer. When I went with my father, the staff took me to the VIP room. Well, since this would be his first time making a guild in his 15 years of hunting, Autumn felt a bit nervous making a one-man guild. I'm a nobody, so I have to wait my turn. Then she nodded as if she knew, and silently waited. I can feel the eyes of passers-by looking this way. They were looking at Celeste, who stood out wherever she went. Ding Hunter number 135, please come to window 7. Ding number 136. Ding number 137. Ding Hunter number 139, please come to window 3. After waiting for a long time, it was finally my turn, and as I was about to stand up with my number tag, someone blocked me in front. The people around me started to buzz. Is that the guy from Lost Day? Yes, S-rank Jang Hyun-suk. What brings him here? A handsome face and slightly taller than Autumn. The emblem of Lost Day stuck on his shoulder. The S-rank superhuman Jang Hyun-suk stood in front of Autumn, smiled, and spoke. Long time no see, Hunter Yu Autumn. I am kind of busy right now. Can I talk to you for a moment? Jang Hyun-suk stood firmly in the way, looking alternately between me and Celeste, then spoke. Hunter Yu Autumn, you must be the senior hunter leading Miss Celeste Costantini's debut. He wasn't finished. Even before Autumn could reply, Jang Hyun-suk continued. However, Miss Celeste needs a better environment. Honestly, don't you know, rather than having a FR rank hunter as her senior, it'll be better to have an S rank like myself. Hey. When Jang Hyun-suk made eye contact with Autumn, he took a half step back without realizing it. It was his instinct. Jang Hyun-suk was flustered, as if he had become a herbivore standing in front of a beast. I am scared of a F rank. Autumn glanced at the stiffened Jang Hyun-suk, then passed by him. We can take care of ourselves, don't keep bothering me. Then Celeste also stood up following Autumn, but Jang Hyun-suk, who just came to his senses, hurriedly blocked her. Stiff Italian came out of an expensive translator that could translate foreign languages. It's not your business anyway, I'll ask her myself. Jang Hyun-suk opened his mouth with a confident look. Miss Celeste with me. No. He was shut down again. He broke out in a cold sweat with a strange, puzzled look on his face. Well, don't be like this, think again. I have nothing to learn from you. Celeste cupped her index finger and thumb. Not even this much. Meanwhile, Autumn arrived at window 3 and sat down. Then Celeste, who followed him, sat next to him. How didn't you talk to him? When Celeste shook her head, Sedum gave an oh really look. Only. Jang Hyun-suk was still standing there, staring at the back of his head. I think he can twist my neck if I use my powers right now. The F rank will do that. Somehow Jang Hyun-suk didn't think he would win. He was also a veteran who had fought on the battlefield for years, so he was instinctively able to see the level of his opponent, and the instinct is now warning him. Don't come at this opponent. In the end, Jang Hyun-suk turned away after looking at their backs for a long time. We'll see when the time comes for her debut. Chapter 9. Whatever work I could find, I did my best. I would do it earnestly even if the work was playing with a stray cat and I was paid conservatively. Yurei giving me 3 grade battle equipment. Yes. This was her debut as a hunter, and as her senior partner I was given 3 grade battle equipment as remuneration. Celeste had done plenty of research on UC Autumn, so she knew the fact that he shows great interest in an ether dispenser. So she gave it to UC Autumn as a gift, as though it was a coincidence. It is no wonder that the efficiency of UC Autumn has increased. One weekend morning. Gathering at the Jumgang gym, C Autumn and Celeste sat side by side on an exercise machine that no one was using and looked at a touchpad. I know this is quite ill-mannered, but there are no people on the weekends anyway. Although there is no set date for their debut, the aspiring hunters seem to be quite busy preparing for their debut. Celeste wanted to meet and talk calmly at a cafe, not at the gym, but it was quite a hassle for C Autumn. Her debut as a hunter will be in the C-rank dungeon, Snow Peak of Polonia. You know there are no countermeasures, right? What tricks are you going to use in this C-rank dungeon? He slowly became quite comfortable with Celeste and spoke his mind, but she didn't seem to care much. Rather, she seemed to want to be comfortable with C Autumn. It's not uncommon for aspiring hunters to do this. No, I know that. Normal prospects targeted D-rank or low E-rank dungeons and gates. But very occasionally super elite prospects targeted C-rank dungeons, which was the case with Celeste. However, that is only possible if the senior hunter is at least a rank. You know that the debut will be judged by your actions because I don't count as a member, right? In other words, if you, C Autumn and Celeste went into the dungeon together, it would be judged as Celeste's solo hunting. It won't be a big problem in itself, but there were a lot of restrictions on solo hunting. It's also formally forbidden for people to enter dungeons alone. In particular, Yurei not allowed to enter a dungeon alone, and Yurei only allowed to enter a dungeon that is 1 or 2 levels higher than you if you were granted special permission. F-rank hunters are not allowed to enter a F-rank dungeon alone. However, exceptions must exist everywhere. 1. A rank hunters with 3 years of experience. 2 hunters who have survived an expedition inside the Hell Gate located at the heart of the Pacific Ocean. 3 veterans with more than 10 years of experience. If any of the above cases were applicable, a solo entry was possible for entering a dungeon of the same rank. Fortunately, this dungeon is a big one, so y'all be attacking it with other aspiring hunters. A total of 6 more teams are coming, so we'll have to wait. You're lucky. But Celeste was a meticulous person and naturally knew about the restrictions on solo entry. On the official website of the International Hunter Federation, you could search for any hunter you wanted and access their public personal information, which she had done in advance. F-rank hunter UC Autumn. Hunter is permitted to enter SSS rank dungeons. In other words, C Autumn is entitled to enter even the most horrible and difficult dungeons in existence alone. That means he is an owner of the free dungeon pass, which very few people in the world possess. Come to think of it, it was a little strange. UC Autumn is a F-rank, how does he have a free dungeon pass? She was very curious but didn't bother to ask because she didn't think C Autumn had any intention of explaining it. The monsters that appear inside spring wolves, hook spiders, etc. It has been more than a decade since the invention of the exploration drone, which can be sent inside the dungeon in advance to identify the initial entry and gather information. Maybe your debut will be broadcast live on UTV and other sites, you know that, don't you? A total of 7 senior hunters and 7 prospects were participating in this C-rank dungeon Snow Peak of Polonia, most of whom belonged to large guilds and were quite well known on the internet before their debut. C Autumn said that in the case that their notable debut is broadcasted live on various platforms, and she should prepare herself to be judged live. With other debuts, 1 or 2 senior hunters would record about 10 applicants, so they have virtually no chance to raise their value. Honestly, it's annoying to check every single one of those videos, right? However, a super rookie's debut like Celeste's was on a whole different level. It will be shown in front of so many netizens through the live broadcast. This is all about raising your value. Anyone with the ability to fight the same rank has a value of tens of millions of dollars, while normal people can barely make ends meet. The first stage to set such a value is during one's debut. After the Great War, it was the most important stage as a hunter in an era where everything has stabilized. In order for you to stand out, you have to show something different from other prospects. Siadam, as if he is recounting his own experience, began to lecture her on how to receive high reviews during her debut. Like a lazy instructor who points out the questions a week before a college entrance exam. However, Celeste was listening to every single one of Siadam's words. Have you led many trainees in the past? It was in a foreign country. Well, have you heard of Michael Rainier, Ahim, Ha Jisung, and Tosif? Yes. When the famous names came out of Siadam's mouth, Celeste opened her eyes wide in shock. Because they were all famous active S-rank hunters. They needed a porter back then, so I took them around, but somehow it changed into a debut. When other hunters taught them how to hunt, Siadam taught them how to survive. Having been talented from the start, they learned how to survive tenaciously and became famous in their own right. Of course, they are now stronger and better than Siadam. I am no match against them. He laughed as he recalled those who had been with him for some reason but are now far away. You can fight a decent D-rank monster by yourself, but first let's look at the spring wolf. It has a very simple attack pattern. As it pounces precisely towards you and tries to bite your arms from the side, you can't fight back by sidestepping because it's a pounce. You should step back instead. Step back when it pounces toward me. Right, Spring Wolf is unique because once it reaches you, there's a delay until it can pounce again. On top of that, Siadam even demonstrated the pattern of the monsters found inside with his own wooden sword. Furthermore, even monsters that the drone could not find were taught their characteristics and the unique ways to fight them. For the first time in Celeste's life, she has learned how many different ways there are to fight. As an elite among elites, the essence taught by Siadam was firmly stuck in her mind. However, Siadam's methods were different. In other words, it was unique. So what do you do when it's defenseless on the ground? You kick it in the crotch. Good to know. The average hunter doesn't need to know such trivial things. But in order to survive as a F-rank hunter, these things must be known. The essence of a veteran hunter who has lived so desperately and somehow managed to survive without a single superpower. Before, Celeste thought there was only one thing to learn from Yu Siadam. However, that was a misconception. The sword of Yu Siadam was only a small fraction of his talent. His true strength lies in his countless life experience as a hunter. As her teacher, Celeste was a very good student. She listens to me, doesn't complain, and if I taught her one thing, she sees 10 things. Well, in fact, I am not a strong enough hunter to be a teacher, but I felt proud to see the little child I taught grow up well. Surprisingly, am I meant to be a teacher? Are you nervous? 6 p.m. By the time most people left work, me and Celeste had just arrived at our job. I laughed as Celeste quietly nodded. Your first time is supposed to be like that. The site of the dungeon was near a national park called Uejongbu, where black cars, cameras, and spectators were already crowding the area. Once again, I feel that these days people are too carefree. If we fail to subdue the dungeon, the surrounding area will open to the other world. Weren't they scared? When the 7 senior hunters and 7 prospects gathered at the scene, a reporter who was broadcasting live on UTV approached. Originally, I didn't care about this process, but this time I took the initiative because I wanted everyone to see Celeste's debut. Haha, finally the stars of today are all here. Let's hear some words from the aspiring hunters, shall we? As expected, this reporter won't be following us inside the dungeon. In the first place, he would probably die to a hunter inside if he kept pestering them. Wow, Miss Celeste is just as pretty as I've heard. Do you have a SNS account? I want to follow you. I thought he was trying to promote the SNS of the prospects. Many people would be curious, especially if it's Celeste's SNS. The reporter's skill was revealed. No. Oh, not for me, I am sorry. I can't be sure, but there are probably many LOL in the reporter's broadcast chatroom by now. Celeste, with a slightly embarrassed look, spoke. No, I don't have a SNS account. Are you sure? Don't all teenagers and people in their 20s have SNS? No. I don't have one either. Unknowingly, he who was standing next to her was struck by splash damage. The reporter kept his attention on Celeste for a long time and conducted an interview. It seems that the viewers liked it because it had the most outstanding visuals among the people who gathered here. Soon after Celeste was visibly exhausted, the reporter turned his attention to another prospect, and in the meantime I looked around. Lost Day, Blue Waterdrop, Red Sunflower, and etc. All the scary guys were gathered. Then I suddenly saw a familiar pattern and my face crumpled. Kinetic Pharmaceutical Company. Perhaps that terrible company which has connection with Lost Day is here on their own accord. I heard that it was a subsidiary of Lost Day, so why did it come all the way here? Then, when the interviewer went to the Lost Day's prospect, I turned my head to look. Hunter Lee Yongjun, you're probably the second most popular person here, do you know that? Haha, I know. Yes, it was originally reported that you were completely ordinary with a 0% ether absorption rate, but I heard you recently succeeded in awakening to C rank. What's your secret? What? As the reporter interviewed him, I narrowed my eyes and examined Lee Yongjun's body. This is because I couldn't believe that an ordinary person with a 0% ether absorption rate had awakened to C rank. Her unnatural muscles and breathing. And madness hidden in the calm eyes. What the hell is he? There's no secret. Through Lost Day's very special training method, I've worked hard enough and have come to awaken my superpower. Oh, that's great. Lee Yongjun has been the hope of the general public since the previous Hunter Yu Siatam. You flatter me. I am not anyone's hope. I just want to let people know that anyone can be like me if they try. I wondered why my name was mentioned. Also, the heat of the video that had been circulating the other day seemed to have not cooled down yet. I was so embarrassed that I wanted to ask UTV to remove it, but I had already given up because I thought it would be meaningless. It will be quiet in a few months anyway. You are too humble. It would be disappointing to end the interview with a prospect last, right? It's not. Contrary to what I thought, yes came from all sides. Powered by the responses, the reporter turned his microphone right to the side. I'd like to hear a word from our S-rank superhuman, Hunter Jang Hyun-suk. Then cheers erupted from all sides. Kaya. I think I'm going to faint. Have my baby. A bunch of freaks. S-rank superhuman Jang Hyun-suk. The fan base seemed to be quite big, perhaps because of the strong image of Lost Day. Well, any guild would use S-rank superhumans as their mascot. In any case, today isn't about me. All the hunters here are great people and they're fighting for you. I think hunters are more of a celebrity than a hunter these days. From what I could recall, he used to stutter, but now he's a very composed man. Jang Hyun-suk glanced at me throughout the interview, but I don't know why. Soon the short interview was done. It's about time. It was time to go into the dungeon. Well, good luck, hunters. As expected, 3 cameramen who awakened as E-rank superhumans followed us as the main reporters left. It's a video that high-ranking people are going to watch, so it seemed like they were going to film with proper cameras. In addition, each had a HTC hunting cam on their chest which could film from the person's point of view, and even 7 autopilot-controlled drones were flying in the sky. Senior hunters had a relaxed face while prospects had a nervous face. One by one, they started to enter the black gate. The moment Lee Yongjun entered the dungeon, all of a sudden, countless messages appeared in my mind. Emergency. A strong cliché has occurred nearby. A protagonist's prologue has begun. However, there is already another protagonist nearby. If a protagonist meets another protagonist, the clichés will collide and may break the protagonist's blessing, which could lead both to the epilogue immediately. Well, wait a moment. It's so sudden that I don't understand. What do you mean epilogue? No way. Once the protagonist is forced to complete their story, their world will end. Shit. The C-rank dungeon in front of me is not the problem. It will be fine whether I am with them or not. But the world that exists in the dungeon will collapse. Emergency mission for Hunter Yu Siatam. On completion of an emergency mission, you can absorb more than one skill or talent from the protagonist. Generating hashtags of the protagonist. Drug strengthened S rank hunter. Hashtag fusion fantasy. Hashtag drug. Hashtag bitter. Hashtag comedy. Hashtag rapid growth. Only. Will you accept the mission? I opened my eyes wide at the sight of the hashtags. A list of hashtags that are so obvious that I understood the plot. I glanced at the dungeon gate where Lee Yongjun disappeared into and was suddenly certain. I instinctively accepted the mission. I accept the mission. Traveling to Snow Peak of Polonia, the world of the protagonist Lee Yongjun. 10. 9. 8. Chapter 10. What is the definition of protagonist? It varies from person to person, but I am referring to the selfish people who grew up eating the blessings of the whole world by themselves. Furthermore, in the 21st century, there hasn't been any crisis for the protagonists to deal with. They're outdated characters. In the past, they'd die, their girlfriends would die, their families would die, their friends would die, or their colleagues would die. What about these days? There's absolutely no such thing. Nowadays, the protagonists just know everything, never put their acquaintances in danger, and overwhelm everything with more power than a villain has. However, the two protagonists I've hunted so far were very weak for a protagonist. One was the tutorial and the other was because I was lucky enough to hunt it when it was sealed. Then, what about a protagonist who has just started their prologue? 2. 1. 0. Travel completed. You are a hunter who came to attack Snow Peak of Polonia. The protagonist Lee Yongjun is level 63. Crazy. I had a sour expression shortly after entering the dungeon, and Celeste, who noticed it, tilted her head. Let's listen to the briefing first. Let's think about it. The level of the first protagonist I hunted was 33. Not to mention his strength, his movements and controls were enough to impress me when I first saw it. His sword dance was at least above a rank, and what if he actually used his full ability? He was at least D rank and his mana output is comparable to a C rank. But he also complemented his speed with technique, increased his strength with talent, and controlled the rhythm of the duel with judgment. All of those things showed a level comparable to Earth's A-rank superhumans who simply wielded D-grade powers. What about Lee Yongjun? Will Lee Yongjun, who was born and raised on Earth, have technique, talent, and judgment? Though classified as C rank, does he have perfect body control even though he has only recently awakened? The other day, I overpowered a B rank monster. However, it was only B rank in brute strength. Its movements were simple and I didn't even have to be careful because it didn't have any abilities. In other words, it was just a mob. This means that it's different from a C rank protagonist. But let's say I can kill him somehow. There was just one other problem. How am I going to kill him? Even now, 3 cameramen are following behind and 7 drones are flying in the air. Each of them is going to be showing the faces of the prospects, so how can I sneak a murder? Besides, Lee Yongjun is together with Jang Hyun-suk, who is a S-rank superhuman. Frankly speaking, if I deal with them now using these equipment, I am 100% certain I'll lose. This is driving me crazy. The briefing ended while I was agonizing over it. Then let's get going. As soon as Jang Hyun-suk spoke, the parties began to enter the first part of the dungeon. 14 people, senior hunters and aspiring hunters. It was none other than Jang Hyun-suk who led the group. He is a S-rank hunter, had a long-range ability, and is the most recognizable hunter. 30 years ago, when monsters first appeared, hunters who did meritorious deeds gained fame, because they were the hope of humanity. But now handsome hunters with good abilities gained fame. Although all they actually do is appear on TV, people still praise them as heroes. That's the way it is. The C-rank dungeon Snow Peak of Polonia is currently being broadcast live all over the world, and it is drawing attention from other countries as well because 2 newcomers who have been quite controversial have gathered. The eldest daughter of the Costantini family, who awakened as a D-rank superhuman at the age of 17. And Lee Yongjun, who lived his entire life as an ordinary person, had awakened as a C-rank superhuman through hard work and diligence. Viewers aged 19 and older were able to watch the live broadcast by clicking on any tab among the cameras from 1 to 7. It was also no surprise that Lee Yongjun and Celeste had the highest ratings. The reason was simple. Lee Yongjun is the first ordinary person with a 0% ether absorption rate to awaken as a superhuman. And Celeste, who caught the attention of the world with her gorgeous appearance to the point where she had become a celebrity. To be honest, among the 7 trainees, Celeste's ability was the most mediocre. She was only noticed because she awakened at an early age, but there were plenty of other D-rank superhumans who awakened before the age of 20. One hunted monsters with the superpower to pass through matter, another could run at super speed, and there was even one who had a rare psychic power. While all 5 superhumans had splendid abilities, Lee Yongjun and Celeste had normal strengthening abilities. As expected, we got a lot of people on Cam 1. Jang Hyun-suk smiled contentedly as he looked at the rising numbers on a thin pad attached to his wrist. If there's one thing the public doesn't know, it's that there are actually separate channels between a regular channel and an official Hunter channel. Despite it being the trainees' debut, the number of related channels not revealed to the public were tallied separately, with the largest number gathered in the channels of Lee Yongjun and Jang Hyun-suk. The reason is simple. An ordinary person had solved the problem of awakening superpowers through effort with the help of his guild. So there were famous hunters, guild masters, politicians, and advertisers among the viewers who were curious and wanted to unravel the secrets. While the number of viewers in the public channels were evenly distributed, it seemed natural for officials to flock to Lee Yongjun's private cam. But what's wrong with Jang Hyun-suk? Why does it seem like he's the most excited one when it's the trainee's debut? So lame. What my oppa is so cool. Jang Hyun-suk was always popular, but he rarely received such attention when he was solo hunting. In fact, Jang Hyun-suk had little experience even though he's high rank and was just as excited as the trainees were. He also often flaunted his status as a senior hunter by playing the role of assisting trainees. His ability Flash Whip is a terrifying superpower where he freely wielded red ether on both hands to cut down enemies at once. Although it was the most eye-catching power among the D through ranks here, the officials did not come to see him. They were already S-rank themselves or people who come in contact with S-ranks every day. They were not interested in Jang Hyun-suk's ability or rank. Their interest lies in Lee Yongjun. Due to Jang Hyun-suk's excessive behavior, officials naturally began to look at the other hunters. There was another hunter who stood out. It was Celeste. Celeste had the lowest viewers among the 7 prospects because officials were confident she would be working with Salvatore Costantini in the future anyways. Besides, what's the need to analyze her, a normal strengthening superhuman? Everyone knew she was a talented hunter, but that's it. There were many hunters as great or better than her. So what they noticed was not Celeste's superpowers, but her innate talent. Oh my god, did you see that? Someone posted a message in the private channel chat window. I can't believe she's dealing with the spring wolf that way. Spring wolf. Its attack, which scratches 4 times by quickly pouncing forward, was difficult to respond to with the human reaction, so it was normal to avoid it by sidestepping. Other aspiring hunters have also been trained by their senior partners in advance, so they have memorized the monster's attack patterns. But even knowing the spring wolf's weakness, it was difficult putting it to use. And contrary to what was taught by other seniors, Celeste was stepping backwards instead of avoiding it sideways. Stepping backwards against a monster that pounces. Normally it would be suicide. To their surprise, however, Celeste calculated the spring wolf's exact attack range and immediately wielded her sword to cut its neck without stepping sideways to avoid its attacks. It was also surprising that her D-rank strengthening overpowered the D-rank spring wolf alone, and the whole process was so smooth that it was admirable enough. But they were only a little surprised. Her talent is great, and if she had studied thoroughly in advance, it was only the natural outcome. However, the way she dealt with the monsters that appeared afterwards was enough to surprise many hunters. So that's how you can deal with that, it's unusual. Well, that's how it is done, but it's not as easy as it looks. How confident in yourself do you have to be to pull that off? Unlike the Lee Yeonjun and Jang Hyun-suk duo who were both being watched, Celeste was the only one being watched of the two. In fact, Yu Si-autumn has been using his ether blade without coating it with ether, and the pistol in his left hand would sometimes fire warning shots. The support from Yu Si-autumn would sometimes catch the eyes of normal viewers who were watching Celeste at the time. What is he? His shooting skills are no joke. All hunters have to be able to do that to become a hunter. Really low. The person above, have you ever fired a gun? No, you idiots, don't you see his shots are perfectly timed? As the viewer pointed out, Si-autumn timed his shots. No matter how weak a pistol is, a small-sized monster would be pushed back. Like before it could hit Celeste, or when 2 or 3 started to gather, or when she was in a bind. But if it wasn't really a dangerous moment, his pistol was still. There were times when Celeste would somehow manage to respond to the enemy in an improbable way, even though it seemed like he would have to fire his pistol. As if he knew that Celeste would successfully block it, Yu Si-autumn would remain still. Viewers began to take notice of Si-autumn when they viewed Celeste's channel. This place is a C-rank dungeon at best. Under normal circumstances, it was a low-level dungeon that nobody cared about. But what if there was a hunter who fought the monsters by taking advantage of its minor traits that are not even registered in the monster database? It was natural to be interested. At first, it was a very small interest. Interest in just seeing something unusual. What's wrong with the hook spider all of a sudden? Oh my, isn't that the blood of the water drifter? It's disrupting the spider's sense of smell. It's fine even if you don't have the full knowledge of every D-rank monster. If you're a S-rank superhuman, you can defeat it with just a lift of your finger. No, wasn't the 36th step of the spring wolf a random jump? How does he know the timing to shoot? He's pointing his gun as if he knew in advance. However, what if you had the knowledge of every monster in the dungeon, and not just 1, 2? What if the person was a 15-year veteran hunter? How the hell did the hunter, who has been fighting on the battlefield for 15 years without a single superpower, stick around the battlefield powerless? In order to confront the powerful forces, what methods did the hunter with no superpowers use? Also, it wasn't just him. Among the 17 people gathered here, Yu Si-autumn's physical abilities were the lowest. Because even the 3 cameramen who were following the parties were stronger E ranks. However, the viewers were speechless. The fact that Yu Si-autumn is more efficient than any other superhumans. Very rarely he would pump ether into his ether blade and quickly swung it, or when completely blocked the enemy's movement with a low-grade pistol that wouldn't even be used by a veteran hunter. Moves that were so simple with no splendor. But in its monotone lies its beauty. That guy, it's Yu Si-autumn. I've heard of him. Is he the hunter who has managed to survive this far as a F rank? So that's the movement of a F rank. Although the public may have only recently seen Yu Si-autumn through a viral video, very few people knew about Yu Si-autumn the hunter. However, they didn't feel it was worth paying attention to F ranks, but the video helped them change their minds a little bit. If you're the only hunter who has survived for 15 years as a F rank with no superpowers at all. Oh, I remember now, he's the hunter who spent 3 years exploring Hell Gate. If you're a hunter who achieved something that even S-rank hunters didn't dare to do. Viewers slowly began to switch. Normal viewers were still focused on Lee Yeonjun, but hunter officials were beginning to look at Celeste. What is this? Looking at the number of viewers reflected on his wrist, Yu Si-autumn tilted his head. Although he led some trainees in the past, this system was quite unfamiliar to him because at the time he did not broadcast live like this. Slowly, the number of interests who were watching Celeste began to increase from dozens to hundreds, but Si-autumn paid little attention to it. Rather, he was paying attention to Lee Yeonjun. All of a sudden, Lee Yeonjun violently unleashed his power and jumped into the pack of monsters. He was acting too recklessly as a trainee. What's wrong with him? Is he crazy? As soon as I had such thought, protagonist Lee Yongjun has gained the skill Take Notice A. A new hashtag broadcast will be added to the protagonist Lee Yongjun. Hashtag summary of the protagonist Lee Yongjun has been modified. Drug strengthened S-rank hunter broadcast. Hashtag fusion fantasy. Hashtag drugged. Hashtag bitter. Hashtag comedy. Hashtag rapid growth. Hashtag broadcast. Hey, what the hell is this? Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the video. Have a suggestion? Let me know in the comments.